Beloved chosen one, before you read another word, I want you to pause wherever you are right now and simply breathe. Because the fact that you are here, hearing these words at this exact moment, in this exact season of your life, is not something that happened by accident. You did not stumble onto this video by chance. Something greater than coincidence brought you here. Call it the whisper of the Spirit. Call it divine timing. Call it the quiet hand of God moving behind the curtain of your ordinary day. But know this, you were led here. And that alone should tell you something about who you are. You have probably heard the phrase chosen one before, and maybe it has felt like a title reserved for someone else. Someone more talented, someone more visible, someone whose life looks more impressive than yours from the outside. But I need you to release that thought right now, because chosen has never been about how loud your life looks to others. Chosen is about how deeply your life is known by the one who made you. And today we are going to talk about a mark. Not a mark that everyone can see with their natural eyes, though sometimes it does show up in visible ways. We are going to talk about the kind of mark that is placed on a person who has wrestled through a night so dark, so exhausting, so relentless, that by morning they are not the same person who started the fight. Only a rare few carry this kind of mark. And if you are watching this today, there is a strong possibility that you are one of them. Think about your own life for a moment. Think about the seasons you have walked through that felt like they lasted far longer than they should have. Think about the nights when sleep would not come, when your mind replayed every worry, every fear, every unanswered question, over and over like a wrestling match that would not end. Maybe you are in one of those nights right now. Maybe the sun outside your window is bright, but inside your spirit it still feels like midnight. If that is you, then you need to hear this today. The struggle you are walking through is not a sign that God has forgotten you. It may actually be the very process by which God is marking you. There is a reason the title of this message speaks of something rare, something that only 1 in a million people carry. Because most people, when the night gets hard, they run. They look for the quickest way out. They numb the pain. They distract themselves. They walk away from the wrestling match before it produces anything in them. But a chosen few, a rare few, they stay. They hold on, even when their strength is gone. They refuse to let go until they receive something real from the deep encounter. And it is that staying, that holding on through exhaustion and doubt and fear, that produces the mark we are talking about today. I want you to consider something. Have you ever noticed that the people who carry the deepest wisdom, the deepest compassion, the deepest faith, are almost always the people who have walked through the hardest nights? It is never the person who had an easy, uneventful life who becomes a source of strength for others. It is always the one who wrestled, the one who bled, the one who limped away from their battle but came back changed forever. That is not a coincidence. That is the pattern of God throughout history, and it is a pattern He is repeating in your life right now, whether you can see it yet or not. So many people scroll past messages like this one because their own pain has convinced them that they are too ordinary to be chosen for anything significant. They believe the lie that says, if I were really important to God, my life would not be this hard. But beloved, that thinking has it backwards. The road to being marked by God is almost never a smooth, comfortable road. It usually runs straight through the wilderness, straight through the long night, straight through the place where you feel most alone. And if you are there right now, I want you to hear me clearly. You are not being punished. You are being prepared. Today we are going to journey together into an ancient story. A story about a man named Jacob who found himself utterly alone one night by the edge of a river, facing a decision that would define the rest of his life. He did not know it yet, but that night would leave him marked forever, in a way that only a rare few throughout history have ever been marked. And through his story, I believe you will begin to see your own story with new eyes. You will begin to recognize the mark that has already been placed, or is even now being placed, upon your own life. Before we go further, I want you to open your heart just a little wider than usual today. Set aside distraction. Set aside the noise of your day, because what you are about to hear is not just an old story from a book. It is a mirror. It is a picture of your own wrestling, your own river, your own long night. And by the end of this message, I pray that you will not only understand the mark, you will recognize it already resting upon your own life, whether you have called it by name before or not. So settle in, beloved. Let your shoulders drop. Let your breathing slow. And let us walk together into the story of a man who wrestled until dawn and who walked away limping, forever changed, forever marked, forever chosen. Before we continue into what heaven is releasing over your life, I want to pause and acknowledge something with sincerity and gratitude. You are here. You chose to give your time and your attention to this message when you could have given it to 1,000 other things. And we do not take that lightly. This channel exists because we believe, deeply and without reservation, that there are chosen ones all over the world who need to hear that God has not forgotten them, that their story is not over, that the crossroads they are standing at is not the end of the road, but the beginning of the most significant chapter they have ever lived. Keeping this ministry alive requires resources, and we want to be honest with you about that in the most straightforward, pressure-free way we know how. If this message has added value to your life today, if something in these words has shifted something in your spirit or reminded you of who you truly are, there is a support link in the description below this video. If you feel genuinely led to give, your contribution goes directly into producing more messages like this one and reaching more chosen ones who are sitting in silence, waiting for a word that was sent to find them. Every gift, no matter the size, is received as an act of partnership in what God is doing through this community, and it is lifted before Him with thanksgiving. If giving is not possible for you in this season, please receive this clearly. You are valued, you are welcome, and your presence here is itself a gift to this community. What we ask, if this message has meant something to you, is simply this: press the like button before you leave, because it tells us that this word landed where it was sent. Share this video with someone in your life who is standing at their own crossroads and needs to hear that the God who prepared everything has not stopped preparing, has not changed His mind, has not looked away. And if you have not yet joined this family by subscribing, we invite you to do that today, so that every new message heaven releases through this channel finds its way to you the moment it arrives. Because you were not meant to walk this road alone. The crossroads you are standing at today is one that others are standing at too. And there is something powerful that happens when chosen ones gather, even across distances, even through a screen, even in the quiet of their own rooms, listening to the same word at different hours of the day, and declare together that they will not default into the almost life. They will step forward. They will choose the fullness. They will walk through the door. To understand the mark we are talking about, we must go back to a night described in the book of Genesis, chapter 32, verses 22 through 32. This is the story of a man named Jacob, and to understand why that night mattered so much, we first need to understand who Jacob was and what had brought him to that lonely riverbank in the first place. Jacob was born the second of twin sons, and from the very moment of his birth, there was something unusual about him. Scripture tells us in Genesis chapter 25, verse 26, that when he came out of the womb, his hand was gripping the heel of his brother Esau, who had been born just moments before him. Because of this, he was given the name Jacob, which carries the meaning of one who grasps the heel, or more pointedly, one who supplants, one who takes the place of another. Even before he could speak a single word, before he had done a single deed, Jacob already carried a name that hinted at struggle, at striving, at reaching for something that seemed just out of his grasp. As he grew, this striving nature followed him. He was not the firstborn, and in that ancient world, the firstborn was the one who received the greater blessing, the greater inheritance, the position of honor in the family. Esau, the elder, was the hunter, the strong outdoorsman, the favorite of his father Isaac. Jacob, by contrast, was described as a quiet man who stayed among the tents, favored more by his mother Rebekah. And so Jacob spent much of his early life in the shadow of his brother, always second, always reaching, never quite arriving at what he believed he deserved. This ache within him eventually led Jacob down a path of deception. Scripture recounts in Genesis chapter 27 how Jacob, with his mother's help, disguised himself to deceive his aging and nearly blind father Isaac, in order to steal the blessing that was meant for Esau. It worked. Jacob received the blessing meant for the firstborn, but the cost was steep. When Esau discovered what had happened, his grief turned to rage, and he vowed that once their father had passed, he would kill his brother. Jacob, fearing for his life, fled his homeland and ran to a distant relative, spending the next 20 years of his life in exile, working, striving, building a family and a fortune, but always carrying within him the unresolved weight of what he had done and who he had wronged. 20 years is a long time to carry unfinished business. 20 years is a long time to wonder whether the people you have hurt will ever forgive you, whether you can ever truly go home again. And it was that after 2 decades away, God called Jacob to return to the land of his birth, to face the brother he had deceived, the brother who had once sworn to kill him. Genesis chapter 32 tells us that as Jacob approached this reunion, word reached him that Esau was coming to meet him, and Esau was bringing 400 men with him. To Jacob, this news must have felt like a death sentence approaching on the horizon. 400 men. There was no way to fight that number, no way to outrun it, no way to negotiate his way out of it through cleverness, the way he had negotiated his way through so many other situations in his life. It was in this state of complete terror and helplessness that Jacob made a decision that would change everything. He sent his family, his servants, and his possessions ahead of him across the ford of a river called Jabbok. And Genesis chapter 32 verse 24 tells us plainly that Jacob was left alone. Alone in the darkness, on the edge of a river, with nothing left to strategize, nothing left to plan, nothing left to control. Everything he had ever relied on, his cleverness, his ability to negotiate, his gift for getting the upper hand, all of it was useless to him now. All he had left was himself, standing in the dark, waiting for whatever the morning would bring. And it was there, in that place of utter helplessness, that Scripture tells us a man wrestled with him until the breaking of the day. We are not told at first who this man was. Jacob himself did not seem to know at the beginning of the struggle. All he knew was that through the long hours of the night, someone had come to him, and a fight had begun. A fight that Jacob refused to lose, even as his own strength failed him. Genesis chapter 32 verse 25 tells us something remarkable. When the man saw that he could not prevail against Jacob, he touched the hollow of Jacob's hip, and the hip was put out of joint as they wrestled. Think about what this means. This was no ordinary opponent. A being with the power to dislocate a grown man's hip with a single touch could surely have ended the struggle at any moment he wished. And yet, he did not end it. He allowed Jacob to keep wrestling, even after that. Wound was inflicted. This tells us something profound about the nature of this encounter. It was never truly a contest of strength. It was a test of Jacob's willingness to hold on, no matter the cost. Even after being wounded, even in unimaginable pain, Jacob did not let go. And as the light of dawn began to break across the sky, the man said to him, "Let me go, for the day breaketh." But Jacob answered with words that have echoed through the ages ever since. He said, "I will not let thee go, except thou bless me." Wounded, exhausted, alone, facing an uncertain and possibly deadly morning ahead of him, Jacob still had the strength within his spirit to demand a blessing before he would release his grip. The man then asked him a question that seems simple on the surface but carries enormous weight. "What is thy name?" And Jacob answered, honestly, Jacob. He spoke aloud the name that meant supplanter, deceiver, one who grasps and strives and takes what is not fully his. It was, in a sense, a confession, a naming of exactly who he had been for the whole of his life up to that point. And then came the moment that changes everything. The man said to him, "Thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel, for as a prince hast thou power with God and with men, and hast prevailed." Israel, a name that means one who strives with God, or one who has power with God. In an instant, the identity that had followed Jacob since before he could speak was replaced with a new identity, earned through struggle, sealed through wounding, and confirmed through the blessing he refused to release his grip until he received. Jacob then asked the name of the one he had wrestled with, but was not given a direct answer. Instead, he was blessed there. And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, saying, "For I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved." He named the place, forever marking that riverbank as the site of his transformation. But the story does not end there. Genesis chapter 32 verse 31 tells us that as Jacob passed over Peniel, the sun rose upon him, and he halted upon his thigh. For the rest of his life, Jacob walked with a limp. The mark was permanent. Every step he took for the remainder of his days would carry a physical reminder of that night, that struggle, that blessing that cost him everything and gave him a new name. Now, this is the part of this message where something must be said from a place of genuine heart. This ministry, this channel, this space where these words are spoken and these truths are released over the lives of chosen ones like you, exists because someone believed that the people who are being tested in silence deserve to be found. That the ones who are carrying extraordinary things through invisible fires deserve to hear a voice that confirms what God has already placed in their spirit. That the ones who have been pressed and pushed and misunderstood and overlooked deserve to stand in a space, even the digital one. They are seen, celebrated, and reminded of who they are in the kingdom of God. Building and maintaining that space requires resources. It requires time, preparation, prayer, and the kind of sustained commitment that does not happen without support. If this message today reached something inside you that needed to be reached, if these words landed on a wound and brought healing, or landed on a doubt and brought clarity, or landed on a weary spirit and brought renewed strength, and you feel in your heart that you would like to support the continuation of this ministry, you will find a link in the description below where you can do so. Every contribution, regardless of its size, goes directly toward keeping this ministry alive and growing, toward producing more messages, reaching more chosen ones, and making sure that this word continues to find the people who need it in the moments when they need it most. And please hear this with all sincerity. Your giving, if you choose to give, is entirely voluntary. There is no pressure here, no obligation, no scale of spiritual value attached to what you contribute or do not contribute. You are no less loved, no less prayed for, no less seen by this ministry if your season does not allow for financial support right now. If you are watching, if you are here, if you made it this far into this message, then your presence is already a form of participation that we do not take lightly. We are grateful for you, exactly as you are, in whatever capacity you are here. What you carried through the fire was not small. What remains in you after everything that tried to consume you is not ordinary. And the God who watched you hold on when holding on felt impossible has not forgotten a single moment of your faithfulness. He is answering it now. He has been answering it all along. Type in the comments below, "I carried it through the fire." Let that declaration rise from you today, not as a boast, but as a testimony. Because what you carried through the fire was placed in you by God, sustained by God, and is now being used by God to build something that no flame could ever touch. Now, beloved, I want to sit with you in this story a little longer, because the spiritual meaning here runs far deeper than an ancient tale about a limping patriarch. This story is in many ways the story of every person who has ever truly encountered God in the midst of their own darkest night. Notice first that Jacob's wrestling did not happen while everything in his life was calm and comfortable. It happened at the very moment when his fear was at its highest, when his future was most uncertain, when everything he had built and relied upon was stripped away, and he was left utterly alone. This is important because so many of us assume that if God truly loved us, our lives would be free from struggle. We assume that the presence of hardship is proof of God's absence. But the story of Jacob teaches us something entirely different. It teaches us that some of the most defining encounters with God happen not in the calm, but in the storm. Not in comfort, but in crisis. Not while we are surrounded by everything familiar, but while we stand alone on the edge of the unknown, with the sun long set and no light yet on the horizon. If you are in a night season right now, I want you to hear this clearly. The darkness you are walking through is not evidence that God has turned away from you. It may in fact be the very setting in which He intends to meet you most intimately. Think of the night as a kind of sacred stage. The world grows quiet. Distraction fades away. All the noise that usually fills your days, the busyness, the small talk, the endless scrolling, all of it disappears. And what remains is simply you, in the dark, facing the truth of your own heart. It is uncomfortable. It is often terrifying, but it is also the very place where transformation becomes possible, because there is nothing left to hide behind. Notice also that the wrestling did not end quickly. Scripture tells us this struggle continued until the breaking of the day, meaning it lasted through the entire night. There was no shortcut. There was no easy resolution after a few brief moments of effort. Jacob had to hold on through hours of exhaustion, through the wearing down of his own physical strength, through the temptation that surely must have crossed his mind more than once to simply give up and let the darkness swallow him. If you have ever wondered why your own struggle has lasted so long, why the answer you are praying for has not yet come, why the healing you are longing for still feels distant, I want you to consider that perhaps your night is simply not over yet. And that does not mean the morning is not coming. It means you are still in the part of the story where holding on matters more than anything else. There is something else worth noticing here, and it may be one of the most comforting truths in this entire story. When the man saw that he could not prevail against Jacob, he touched him, and Jacob was wounded. This tells us that the wound Jacob received did not come because he was weak. It came because he was strong enough that an ordinary touch would not have been enough to end the struggle. The wound was, in a strange and beautiful way, a mark of Jacob's tenacity, not his failure. Beloved, if your life has left you with wounds, if your journey has left you limping in places, I want you to consider that these marks may not be signs that you lost the fight. They may be signs of exactly how hard you fought and exactly how unwilling you were to let go before receiving what you needed from the encounter. Now let us think about the timing of this transformation. The wrestling took place through the deepest hours of night. But the blessing, the new name, the confirmation of Jacob's changed identity, all of it came at the breaking of the day. This is a pattern woven throughout the whole of Scripture. The darkest hour so often gives way to the dawn. The deepest despair so often precedes the greatest breakthrough. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning, as the psalmist tells us in Psalm chapter 30, verse 5. If you feel as though you are still in your night right now, take heart in this pattern. Night does not last forever. Dawn is not a maybe. Dawn is a certainty built into the very order of creation, and it will come for you just as surely as it came for Jacob by that riverbank. Perhaps the most powerful part of this story, though, is the moment when Jacob is asked his name, and he answers honestly. He does not hide behind excuses. He does not try to present a better version of himself. He simply says, I am Jacob. I am the one who has grasped and struggled and deceived, and taken by force what I was afraid I would never receive by grace. There is something deeply freeing in this moment of honesty. So often we believe that in order to encounter God, we must first clean ourselves up, hide our failures, present only our best self. But Jacob's encounter teaches us the opposite. It is precisely when he speaks his true name, his true history, his true brokenness, that the transformation happens. God does not wait for you to become someone else before he meets you. He meets you exactly as you are, in the middle of your struggle, in the honesty of your own confession, and it is there that he begins to speak a new name over your life. And what a name it is! No longer Jacob, the one who grasps and strives and deceives. Now Israel, one who has power with God, one who has wrestled with the divine and emerged not destroyed, but transformed. This is the pattern for every one of us who has walked through our own long night of struggle. The old identity, shaped by fear, by striving, by the wounds others have inflicted on us or the wounds we have inflicted on ourselves, can be replaced. Not erased, as though the past never happened, but transformed, so that the very struggle that once defined us in weakness now defines us in strength. This, beloved, is the true meaning of the mark we are speaking of today. It is not a mark of shame. It is not a mark of failure. It is the mark of an encounter so real, so costly, so transformative, that it changes the way you walk for the rest of your life. Every step Jacob took after that night carried the memory of what happened at Peniel. And every step you take after your own night of wrestling can carry the same testimony, whether visible to others or known only between you and the God who met you there. Let me tell you about a woman I will call Grace, though that is not her real name, because her story has stayed with me for a long time, and I believe it will speak directly into the heart of many of you watching today. Grace was in her mid-30s when everything she had built began to unravel at once. She had worked for nearly 10 years at the same company, climbing steadily, believing that stability was something she had finally earned. And then, without warning, the entire department she worked in was eliminated. She lost her job on a Tuesday afternoon, walking out of the building with a small box of belongings and no idea what came next. Within the same season, the relationship she had hoped would lead to marriage came to a quiet, painful end. Not through betrayal exactly, but through a slow drifting apart that left her wondering what she had done wrong. Wondering whether she was simply someone people eventually chose to leave. For months afterward, Grace found herself lying awake most nights, staring at the ceiling of her small apartment, doing the exhausting math of bills against a shrinking savings account. If you have ever walked through a season of unemployment, you know that particular kind of night where worry does not simply visit you once and leave, but sets up residence in your mind, returning every single night at the exact moment you try to close your eyes. She applied for job after job, heard nothing back from most of them, and slowly began to believe the lie that she had somehow become invisible, unremarkable, easily overlooked by both employers and by love. There came a night, several months into this season, when Grace later described feeling as though she had reached the edge of her own river, Jabbok. She had sent out what felt like her 100th application that day, had eaten quietly alone, and found herself sitting on the floor of her living room, back against the couch, simply too tired to hold back the tears any longer. She has told me since that in that moment she was not praying eloquent words. She was not quoting scripture or making promises to God about how she would live differently if only He would rescue her. She simply said, out loud, into the empty room, "I do not know if you see me. I do not know if I matter to anyone, but I am not letting go of this until something changes." She did not know it in that moment, but she was doing exactly what Jacob did by that ancient river. She was refusing to release her grip until a blessing came. The wrestling did not end that night. In fact, in some ways it grew harder in the weeks that followed. She received 2 more rejections. Her car needed a repair she could not easily afford. There were moments she describes as feeling like an actual wound, a hip put out of joint, a wound to her confidence, her identity, her sense of worth. And yet something in her had shifted after that night on the living room floor. She kept applying. She kept showing up to the small part-time work she had taken just to cover groceries. She kept praying, even when the prayers felt more like honest confession than confident declaration. If you are someone in a season of unemployment right now, someone doing the exhausting math of bills against a shrinking account, someone lying awake, wondering if you have somehow become invisible to the world, I want you to hear Grace's story as a mirror for your own. The wrestling you are in right now is not a sign that you have been forgotten. It may be the very process through which your new name is being formed. Grace's breakthrough did not come in the form of a single dramatic moment. It came gradually, the way dawn actually arrives, not as an instant burst of light, but as a slow lightening of the horizon that you almost do not notice until you look up and realize the darkness has lifted. A woman she barely knew from a former workplace reached out one afternoon, having heard through a mutual contact that Grace was job hunting, and mentioned an opening at a company Grace had never considered. It was not the job she had originally imagined for herself. In many ways, it required her to start over at a lower position than the one she had lost. But she took it, and within that new environment, she discovered a version of herself she had not known existed, more resilient, more resourceful, less afraid to ask for what she needed, more able to recognize her own worth without needing someone else's validation to confirm it. Grace describes her life now, several years later, as one that carries a permanent mark from that season. Much like Jacob's limp, she still occasionally feels the old fear rise up when finances get tight, or when a relationship does not go as she hoped. But she says that fear no longer controls her the way it once did, because she remembers the night on her living room floor, and she remembers that she held on, and she remembers that the dawn did eventually come. If you are someone who feels ordinary and unnoticed, someone quietly wondering whether your life carries any real significance to anyone, I want you to know that Grace felt exactly the same way in her darkest season. And if you are someone carrying an invisible wound from rejection, whether from a job that let you go, a relationship that ended, or a family that misunderstood you, I want you to know that the very place of that wound can become, in time, the very place where your new name is spoken. This is not a promise that pain will disappear painlessly or instantly. Jacob walked with a limp for the rest of his life, but that limp was not a symbol of defeat. It was a symbol of an encounter so real that it changed the way he moved through the world forever afterward. And it can be the same for you. Can you sense it? Is there something in you right now, underneath whatever emotions are present on the surface, that is recognizing the movement of God in this moment? If you can feel it, if something in your spirit is saying, yes, this is real, this is for me, this is the moment I have been waiting for, then respond to it. Do not let this moment pass without anchoring it with a declaration. Type the words "I receive it" in the comments right now. 4 words that declare to heaven and to the spiritual atmosphere around your life that you are open, you are ready, and you are choosing to receive everything that God is releasing over you in this Kairos season. Let those words be your declaration of alignment. Let them be the moment your spirit says yes to what heaven is already saying over you. This channel exists to stand with you in moments exactly like this one, to be the voice that calls out the expectation in the chosen ones when the weight of waiting has made expectation feel dangerous. Every message released here is built on the belief that God is still moving, still speaking, still releasing Kairos moments into the lives of His chosen ones, and that the job of this ministry is to make sure that those chosen ones are awake and ready to receive what heaven is sending. If this work has been a part of your spiritual journey, if these messages have helped keep your expectation alive in seasons where it wanted to die, please consider supporting what God is doing here. The link in the description is there for anyone who feels led to sow into this ministry. Every gift is an act of partnership in reaching more chosen ones who are still waiting to hear that their Kairos is coming. It is entirely voluntary and received with the deepest gratitude regardless of amount. And if sharing is what you can do today, please share this message with someone who needs it. Like this video, subscribe if you have not already, and stay connected, because what is coming next in this conversation is something your spirit needs to hear. Your new season is not coming. It is here. Receive it. Let me tell you about a woman I will call Grace, though that is not her real name, because her story has stayed with me for a long time, and I believe it will speak directly into the heart of many of you watching today. Grace was in her mid-30s when everything she had built began to unravel at once. She had worked for nearly 10 years at the same company, climbing steadily, believing that stability was something she had finally earned. And then, without warning, the entire department she worked in was eliminated. She lost her job on a Tuesday afternoon, walking out of the building with a small box of belongings and no idea what came next. Within the same season, the relationship she had hoped would lead to marriage came to a quiet, painful end, not through betrayal exactly, but through a slow drifting apart that left her wondering what she had done wrong, wondering whether she was simply someone people eventually chose to leave. For months afterward, Grace found herself lying awake most nights, staring at the ceiling of her small apartment, doing the exhausting math of bills against a shrinking savings account. If you have ever walked through a season of unemployment, you know that particular kind of night where worry does not simply visit you once and leave, but sets up residence in your mind, returning every single night at the exact moment you try to close your eyes. She applied for job after job, heard nothing back from most of them, and slowly began to believe the lie that she had somehow become invisible, unremarkable, easily overlooked by both employers and by love. There came a night, several months into this season, when Grace later described feeling as though she had reached the edge of her own river Jabbok. She had sent out what felt like her 100th application that day, had eaten a quiet dinner alone, and found herself sitting on the floor of her living room, back against the couch, simply too tired to hold back the tears any longer. She has told me since that, in that moment, she was not praying eloquent words. She was not quoting scripture or making promises to God about how she would live differently if only He would rescue her. She simply said, out loud, into the empty room, "I do not know if you see me. I do not know if I matter to anyone. But I am not letting go of this until something changes." She did not know it in that moment, but she was doing exactly what Jacob did by that ancient river. She was refusing to release her grip until a blessing came. The wrestling did not end that night. In fact, in some ways it grew harder in the weeks that followed. She received 2 more rejections. Her car needed a repair she could not easily afford. There were moments she describes as feeling like an actual wound, a hip put out of joint, a wound to her confidence, her identity, her sense of worth. And yet, something in her had shifted after that night on the living room floor. She kept applying. She kept showing up to the small part-time work she had taken just to cover groceries. She kept praying, even when the prayers felt more like honest confession than confident declaration. If you are someone in a season of unemployment right now, someone doing the exhausting math of bills against a shrinking account, someone lying awake, wondering if you have somehow become invisible to the world, I want you to hear Grace's story as a mirror for your own. The wrestling you are in right now is not a sign that you have been forgotten. It may be the very process through which your new name is being formed. Grace's breakthrough did not come in the form of a single dramatic moment. It came gradually, the way dawn actually arrives. Not as an instant burst of light, but as a slow lightening of the horizon that you almost do not notice until you look up and realize the darkness has lifted. A woman she barely knew from a former workplace reached out one afternoon, having heard through a mutual contact that Grace was job hunting, and mentioned an opening at a company Grace had never considered. It was not the job she had originally imagined for herself. In many ways, it required her to start over at a lower position than the one she had lost. But she took it, and within that new environment, she discovered a version of herself she had not known existed. More resilient, more resourceful, less afraid to ask for what she needed, more able to recognize her own worth without needing someone else's validation to confirm it. Grace describes her life now, several years later, as one that carries a permanent mark from that season, much like Jacob's limp. She still occasionally feels the old fear rise up when finances get tight, or when a relationship does not go as she hoped. But she says that fear no longer controls her the way it once did, because she remembers the night on her living room floor, and she remembers that she held on, and she remembers that the dawn did eventually come. If you are someone who feels ordinary and unnoticed, someone quietly wondering whether your life carries any real significance to anyone, I want you to know that Grace felt exactly the same way in her darkest season. And if you are someone carrying an invisible wound from rejection, whether from a job that let you go, a relationship that ended, or a family that misunderstood you, I want you to know that the very place of that wound can become, in time, the very place where your new name is spoken. This is not a promise that pain will disappear painlessly or instantly. Jacob walked with a limp for the rest of his life. But that limp was not a symbol of defeat. It was a symbol of an encounter so real that it changed the way he moved through the world forever afterward, and it can be the same for you. Now, beloved, let us talk plainly about the signs that you may be in your own version of this wrestling season, and how you can respond to those signs in practical, faithful ways, no matter what specific circumstance you are walking through right now. The first sign to recognize is a season where your usual strategies stop working. For most of his life, Jacob relied on his own cleverness to get ahead. He negotiated, he schemed, he found workarounds. But when he arrived at the edge of that river, none of his old tools were available to him anymore. If you find yourself in a season where your usual coping mechanisms, your usual plans, your usual sense of control suddenly feel powerless against what you are facing, this is often a sign that you have arrived at your own river Jabbok. It can feel frightening because it strips away the illusion that you were ever fully in control to begin with. But it is often exactly the place where a deeper, more lasting transformation becomes possible, because you are finally in a position to receive something you could never have earned or engineered on your own. The second sign is prolonged, exhausting struggle that does not resolve quickly. If you are someone facing a long, lonely struggle right now, whether it is financial hardship that has stretched on far longer than you expected, a health concern that lingers without clear answers, or an emotional weight that simply will not lift no matter how much you pray, I want you to understand that this prolonged nature of the struggle is not necessarily a sign that God is absent. Jacob wrestled for hours, through the entire night. There was no shortcut given to him, no early exit from the struggle. If your season has stretched longer than you expected, take heart in knowing that length of struggle is not evidence of abandonment. It may simply be evidence that something significant is being formed in you, something that requires the full weight of the night to produce. The third sign is the presence of a wound alongside the struggle, some cost that the season has extracted from you that you did not expect to pay. Perhaps it is a friendship that did not survive the difficulty. Perhaps it is a level of confidence you once had that has been shaken. Perhaps it is a physical toll, sleepless nights, the weight of stress on your body. Jacob's hip was put out of joint in the middle of his wrestling, and he carried that wound for the rest of his life. If your season has left you with a wound, whether visible to others or known only to you, I want you to understand that this wound does not disqualify you from receiving a blessing. In fact, in Jacob's story, the wound and the blessing arrived in the very same encounter. They were never separate from one another. Now let us talk about practical application, because recognizing the signs is only the beginning. The question becomes, how do you respond faithfully while you are in the middle of this kind of season? The first practical step is refusing to let go before you receive something real from the struggle. This does not mean gritting your teeth and pretending everything is fine. It means continuing to show up, continuing to pray honestly, continuing to take the next faithful step even when you cannot see the outcome. If you are someone who feels ordinary and unnoticed, this might look like continuing to develop the small gifts you have been given, even when no one seems to be watching, trusting that the one who sees in secret is preparing you for something you cannot yet see. If you are someone in a season of financial hardship or unemployment, this might look like continuing to apply, continuing to show up for the work you do have, even when it feels smaller than what you once had, trusting that the season of lower position is often the very training ground for the next level. The second practical step is speaking honestly about your true condition, rather than hiding behind a performance of having everything together. Remember that Jacob's transformation began the moment he honestly spoke his own name, Jacob, meaning the deceiver, the one who strives. There is enormous freedom in dropping the mask, in admitting to God and sometimes to a trusted friend or community exactly where you are, exactly what you are afraid of, exactly what has been done to you or what you have done yourself. If you are someone healing from betrayal or family rejection, this honesty might be the hardest and most important step you take, because so often the wound of betrayal convinces us to build walls rather than speak truth. But it is in the honest speaking of our true condition that God begins to speak a new name over us. The third practical step is watching for the dawn, actively expecting that your night will not last forever. Jacob's struggle ended at the very moment the day was breaking. This tells us that even in the darkest hour of his wrestling, morning was already on its way, even though he could not yet see it. If you are in your own long night right now, I want you to practice actively watching for small signs of light on the horizon. This might mean noticing small answers to prayer that you might otherwise dismiss as coincidence. It might mean paying attention to unexpected doors that open, unexpected people who reach out, unexpected moments of peace in the midst of your struggle. These are often the first rays of dawn, and recognizing them helps you hold on through the last and often hardest hours before the light fully breaks. Whatever specific circumstance you are facing today, whether it is the ache of feeling unnoticed, the exhaustion of a long financial struggle, or the invisible wound of betrayal, I want you to know that these signs are not random. They are part of a pattern that God has used throughout history to prepare his chosen ones for a new name, a new identity, a mark that sets you apart. You are not walking through this season for nothing. You are being prepared for the dawn that is already on its way toward you. Now, if this message has meant something to you, if it has reached a place in you that needed to be reached, we want to ask you to do something simple and powerful. Share this video today, right now, before you do anything else. Think of the person in your life who is in the deepest part of their wilderness right now, the one who is barely holding on, the one who has stopped talking about their dreams because the talking had become too painful, and send this to them. You may not realize it, but that single act of sharing could be the thing that keeps someone going who is considering giving up. Do not underestimate what you carry simply by passing this along. Subscribe to this channel if you have not already done so, because this community is a place for the chosen ones, a place where you are seen and spoken to and reminded of who you are on the days when the world tries to tell you something different. And like this video as your declaration that this word was real, and that you receive it, and that you want it to travel further into the lives of people who need it just as desperately as you did when it found you. And now we want to share something with you from a place of complete honesty and vulnerability, because you deserve that honesty. This channel has had its monetization removed by the platform. There is no revenue coming in from these videos. And yet, week after week, we continue to create this content, continue to seek God for what his chosen ones need to hear, continue to pour time and prayer and genuine labor into every message, because this is not a business. This is a ministry. This is a calling. And a calling does not stop because the financial support stops. A calling continues because the one who gave it is faithful, and the people who need it are real. And walking away from them is simply not something that we are able to do. But we want to be honest with you. Sustaining this ministry without any platform income requires the support of this community. If you have received something real here, If these messages have been a source of genuine spiritual nourishment and encouragement and life for you, and if your heart feels genuinely moved to help keep this going, there is a donation link in the description below and in the pinned comment. Every single contribution, regardless of its size, goes directly toward making sure this ministry can continue producing content for the chosen ones who need it. We are not asking out of pressure. We are not placing a condition on the word that was released here today. We are simply being honest about where we are and trusting that the people who feel led to respond will respond, and that God will honor both the giving and the ministry it sustains. Beloved, we now come to the very heart of this message, the place where I want to pause and speak directly to whatever ache you are carrying today, because it is time to talk about the emotional center of this entire story. It is time to talk about the truth that God has never, not for a single moment, abandoned you. Think again about that image of the mark, the place on Jacob's hip where he was touched and forever changed. I want you to understand something profound about that touch. It did not come from an enemy trying to destroy him. It came from the very one he was wrestling with in order to receive a blessing. The wound and the presence were never separate from each other. The very hand that marked him was the very hand that stayed with him through the entire night, refusing to leave even when Jacob refused to let go. This is the truth I want to press into your heart today. Wherever you carry a mark, wherever you carry a wound, wherever your life has been touched in a way that left a permanent change, I want you to consider that this may not be evidence of abandonment. It may be evidence of a presence that never left, even in the hardest hour. So many people believe that if God truly loved them, their story would look different. They believe that pain is proof of absence, that struggle is proof of forgetting. But beloved, think again about the timing of Jacob's story. He was not alone in the sense of being forgotten. He was alone in the sense of being stripped down to the one encounter that mattered most. Everyone else had crossed the river ahead of him. Every distraction, every comfort, every other voice had gone on ahead. What remained was Jacob, and the one who came to wrestle with him through the night. That is not absence. That is the most intimate kind of presence there is. A presence so close, it left a permanent mark. If you are walking through a season right now where you feel utterly alone, I want you to consider that perhaps you are not alone at all. Perhaps everything else has simply been stripped away so that you could recognize, perhaps for the first time in your life, the one presence that has been with you the entire time. The job that ended, the relationship that faded, the friendship that grew distant. None of these losses mean that you have been forgotten. They may simply mean that you have arrived at your own riverbank, your own place of reckoning, your own encounter that is meant to leave you changed forever. I want you to hear something else, something that I believe with all my heart. The struggle you are walking through right now is not bigger than the one who is walking through it with you. Jacob wrestled all night, and by the strength of his own body alone, he never would have prevailed. But he was not fighting merely by his own strength. He was fighting in an encounter initiated by God himself, and even the wound he received was allowed within the boundaries of a presence that ultimately intended to bless him, not destroy him. Whatever you are facing today, whatever feels too heavy, too long, too painful to carry any further, I want you to remember that you are not fighting alone. The very presence that allowed the struggle is the same presence committed to seeing you through to the dawn. Consider for a moment how the story ends. Jacob does not simply survive the night. He does not merely limp away broken and diminished. He receives an entirely new name. He becomes Israel, one who has power with God. The very struggle that could have destroyed him instead became the foundation of an entire nation. For it is from Jacob, now called Israel, that the 12 tribes descend, an entire people who carry his transformed name to this very day. Beloved, if God can take one man's single night of wrestling and turn it into the foundation of a nation that would exist for thousands of years afterward, do you not think he can take your own season of struggle and turn it into something that outlives the pain of this present moment? I want you to sit with a question for a moment. What if the very thing you are most ashamed of, the wound you try hardest to hide, the mark that makes you feel most set apart in a painful way, is actually the very place where your new name is being formed? What if the limp you carry, whether physical, emotional, or simply the quiet limp of a heart that has been hurt, is not a sign of your brokenness, but a sign of how fiercely you have held on through your own long night? There is a reason ancient peoples so often marked significant moments with physical signs, whether an altar of stones, a name given to a place, a scar carried for a lifetime. These marks were never meant to be sources of shame. They were meant to be reminders, permanent testimonies that something real happened, that an encounter took place that changed the entire trajectory of a life. If you carry a mark today, whether visible to others or hidden deep within your own heart, I want you to consider that it may be less a wound and more a badge, quiet evidence that you have wrestled with something far bigger than yourself and did not let go until you received a blessing. To every one of you who has felt unnoticed, unremarkable, easily forgotten in the great crowd of humanity, I want to say this as clearly as I can. You are not one among a million faceless people. You are being marked right now, in this very season, for a purpose that only becomes visible with time. The world may not yet see the significance of what is happening in you. Even you yourself may not yet fully see it, but God sees it. He has seen every single night you have lain awake. He has seen every tear you tried to hide from those around you. He has seen every moment you wanted to let go, but somehow found the strength to hold on one more day. And He is not finished with your story. Morning is still coming. Your new name is still being spoken, even now, even in this very moment, over your life. Let us now turn to the scriptures themselves, because the truths we have been speaking of are not simply the product of one story alone. They run throughout the entire testimony of the Bible, confirming again and again that struggle, when surrendered fully to God, becomes the very ground on which transformation and blessing take root. The first passage returns us to the very story we have been walking through, found in Genesis chapter 32, verse 28, where it is written, "And he said, Thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel, for as a prince hast thou power with God and with men, and hast prevailed." This verse confirms that the struggle Jacob endured was not simply something to be survived. It was something through which he actually prevailed, through which a new identity was given, sealed by the very presence he wrestled with. Whatever your own version of wrestling looks like today, this verse invites you to believe that you too are being positioned to prevail, not merely to endure. The second passage comes from the book of Psalms, chapter 30, verse 5, which tells us that weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. This verse has comforted the grieving and the struggling for thousands of years, and it speaks directly into the pattern we have seen in Jacob's story. The night of wrestling was real. The pain was real, but it was never meant to be permanent in the way that fear often convinces us it will be. Morning was already written into the story, before the night even began. And the same is true for whatever night you find yourself walking through now. The third passage is found in the book of Isaiah, chapter 41, verse 10, where God speaks these words of comfort. "Fear thou not, For I am with thee, be not dismayed, for I am thy God. I will strengthen thee. Yea, I will help thee. Yea, I will uphold thee with the right hand of my righteousness. This passage reminds us that the presence of God during our own wrestling season is not distant or passive. He is actively strengthening, actively helping, actively upholding, even in the very moments when we feel most alone in our struggle. If you have felt forgotten during your own long night, let this verse remind you that the hand that seemed absent has actually been the hand upholding you the entire time. The fourth passage comes from the book of James, chapter 1, verses 2 through 4, which tells us to count it all joy when we fall into various trials, knowing that the trying of our faith worketh patience, and that patience must have her perfect work, that we may be entire, wanting nothing. This is a difficult passage for many people to receive because it asks us to consider trials not as interruptions to a good life, but as the very means by which something whole and complete is being formed within us. Jacob's night of wrestling was, in every sense, a trial of the most intense kind, and yet it produced within him a completeness of identity that he had never possessed before, a new name that replaced the old, fractured sense of self he had carried since birth. The fifth passage is found in the book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 4, verses 16 through 17, which tells us that though the outward man perish, yet the inward man is renewed day by day, for our light affliction, which is but for a moment, worketh for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory. This passage acknowledges honestly that affliction is real, that the outward struggle can wear us down, but it insists that something is happening on the inside, day by day. Even during the hardest seasons, that far outweighs the temporary nature of the pain itself. Jacob's outward body was wounded, his hip put out of joint, but his inward identity was being renewed in a way that would shape the rest of his life and the lives of generations after him. The sixth passage comes from the book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 28, which tells us that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. This verse does not promise that every individual event in our lives is good in itself. It promises that God is at work, weaving even our hardest seasons into a larger pattern of good, a pattern that often only becomes visible with the passing of time. If you cannot yet see how your current struggle could possibly work toward good, this verse invites patience, trusting that the weaving is happening even when we cannot yet see the finished pattern. The seventh and final passage for today comes from the book of Revelation, chapter 2, verse 17, where it is written, "To him that overcometh will I give to eat of the hidden manna, and will give him a white stone, and in the stone a new name written, which no man knoweth saving he that receiveth it." This passage speaks of a new name given specifically to those who overcome, a name known intimately between the individual and God alone. This mirrors precisely what happened to Jacob at Peniel, receiving a new name known and confirmed by the very presence he encountered. Beloved, whatever new name is being formed within you through your own season of struggle, know that it is being written even now, and one day it will be fully revealed, known between you and the one who has walked with you through every step of the night. Together, these 7 passages tell one unified story. Struggle is real, pain is real, the wound is real, but none of it is the final word. Morning comes, strength is given, trials produce completeness, inward renewal outweighs outward affliction. All things are woven toward good, and a new name awaits every single one who holds on until the blessing comes. Now, before we go any further into what God is releasing over your life in this season, we want to take a genuine and heartfelt moment to speak to you about this community and what it means to us. These messages do not come from a place of professional content creation or algorithmic strategy. They come from a place of genuine calling, from a team of people who wake up believing that words spoken in faith can reach into the hidden places of a person's life and do what no human counsel alone can do. From people who pray over these messages before they are written and ask God to make sure that every word carries the weight it needs, to carry for the person who needs it most. This ministry is sustained by the generosity of people who believe in what God is doing through this platform. If you have been watching this channel for a while, or even if this is the first message of ours that has found you, and if something in what you have received here has genuinely changed something in you, encouraged you, strengthened your faith, reminded you of your worth, or given you the courage to keep believing for one more day, we want to gently and sincerely invite you to consider supporting this ministry. There is a link in the description below. It is there for anyone who feels led to partner with what God is doing here. Your support, whatever it looks like, keeps these messages going. It means that the person who is right now sitting in the darkest moment of their life, searching for something that will help them believe that God has not forgotten them, gets to find what you found today. And we want to say this with our whole hearts. If you are in a season where supporting financially is simply not possible, please hear us clearly. You are no less valued here. You are no less welcome. Your presence in this community, your willingness to open your heart to what God is speaking, your decision to share these messages with someone who needs them, all of it matters more than we can express. A like on this video helps it reach someone who needs it. Sharing it with one person could be the moment that turns their life around. Subscribing to this channel means you will never miss a message that God may have specifically prepared for your next season. These are simple things that cost you nothing but mean everything to the work of this ministry and to the people it reaches. Let us pray together now, beloved, because I do not want this message to remain only words spoken and heard. I want it to become a moment of genuine encounter between your heart and the God who has been walking with you through every night you have ever faced. Heavenly Father, I come before you now on behalf of every single person hearing these words. You know each one by name. You know the specific river they are standing beside right now, the specific darkness they are wrestling through, the specific wound that has left them changed, whether visible to others or hidden deep within their own heart. Lord, I ask that you would meet each person exactly where they are, not where they wish they were, not where they pretend to be, but exactly where they truly stand tonight. For the one who feels ordinary, unnoticed, quietly wondering if their life carries any real significance, Father, I ask that you would remind them even now that they were formed by your own hands, known before the foundation of the world, chosen not because of what they can offer, but because of who you have declared them to be. Let them feel, even in this very moment, that they are not invisible to you, that you have never once overlooked them, that the very fact they are hearing these words is proof that you have been pursuing their heart all along. For the one walking through a long, lonely struggle in the night season of their life, whether financial hardship, unemployment, or private anxiety that no one else can see, Father, I ask that you would give them strength for one more day, and then strength again for the day after that. Where their savings account feels thin, let your provision be found sufficient. Where the job search feels endless, let there be an unexpected door opening in a direction they did not anticipate. Where anxiety keeps them awake at night, let your peace, which surpasses all understanding, guard their heart and their mind. Let them know that this night, however long it has stretched, is not the final chapter of their story. For the one carrying an invisible wound from betrayal or family rejection, Father, I ask that you would begin the process of turning that place of pain into a place of new identity. Where trust has been broken, rebuild it slowly and gently. Where family has misunderstood or rejected them, surround them with a chosen family of faith who will see them clearly and love them well. Let the very place where they were wounded become in time the very place where they hear you speak a new name over their life, just as you did for Jacob so long ago. Lord, for every single person hearing this prayer, I ask that you would remind them that struggle is never the end of the story you are writing. Just as the night eventually gave way to dawn for Jacob at the river, let dawn break over every area of darkness in their lives. Where there has been financial lack, bring provision. Where there has been relational pain, bring healing. Where there has been confusion about identity or purpose, bring clarity and a new name that replaces every old, fractured sense of self. I ask, Father, that you would give each person listening the strength to hold on just a little longer, even when they feel they have nothing left to give. Just as Jacob refused to let go until he received a blessing, give each listener that same holy stubbornness, that same refusal to release their grip on hope, on faith, on you, until they too can say that they have wrestled and prevailed. Heal every wound that this season has caused. Where confidence has been shaken, restore it. Where bodies are weary from sleepless nights and carried stress, bring rest that goes deeper than mere sleep, a rest that settles into the very soul. Where minds are exhausted from constant worry, bring peace that does not depend on circumstances changing first. And Lord, for those who have felt abandoned, forgotten, unseen in their pain, reveal yourself to them even now in a way that removes all doubt. Let them sense your nearness not as a distant idea, but as a present reality, close enough to touch, close enough to mark them forever with the certainty that you have never once left their side. Give each person a new name today, Father. Whatever old identity has followed them, shaped by fear, by past mistakes, by wounds inflicted by others, replace it with the identity you have always intended for them to carry. Let them walk forward from this moment, not denying the mark their struggle has left upon them, but understanding that mark as evidence of an encounter with you, evidence of a night they held on and did not let go, evidence of a blessing that has already begun to unfold in their life. We ask all of this in faith, believing that you hear every prayer, that you see every tear, that you know every name, and that you are, even now, writing a new chapter for every single person who has walked through this message with an open and honest heart. Let dawn break over their lives, Lord, and let them walk forward marked forever, but marked for good. In the name above every name we pray. Amen. Beloved, as we move now into a time of spiritual healing and awakening, I want you to picture something with me. I want you to picture the moment just after Jacob received his new name, the moment when the sun rose upon him as he crossed over Penuel. Scripture tells us plainly that he halted upon his thigh, meaning he walked away limping, forever changed. But notice something remarkable about this detail. He did walk away. He did not remain frozen at the riverbank, paralyzed by what happened to him. He crossed over. He continued forward into the next chapter of his life, carrying both the wound and the blessing together, inseparable from one another. This, beloved, is the picture of true spiritual healing. It is not the erasure of everything that happened to you. It is not a return to some imagined version of yourself before the struggle began, as though the wrestling never occurred. True healing is the ability to walk forward, wound and blessing carried together, no longer torn apart by the tension between them, but integrated into a single, whole identity that is stronger, wiser, and more deeply rooted than it was before the night began. If you have been waiting for healing to look like the complete disappearance of everything you have walked through, I want to gently offer you a different picture today. Healing may not mean forgetting. Healing may mean walking forward with your story fully intact, no longer as a source of shame, but as a source of quiet strength, a limp that reminds you, every single step, of the night you refused to let go until the blessing came. Awakening, in this sense, begins with a shift in how you view your own wounds. For so long, many of us have hidden our marks, ashamed of the seasons that left us different than we once were. We compare our limp to others who seem to walk without one, forgetting that every single person carries some kind of mark from their own private wrestling, whether visible to the world or hidden deep within. Spiritual awakening invites you to stop hiding your mark and instead to recognize it for what it truly is: evidence of an encounter, evidence of survival, evidence of a blessing wrestled for and received. I want to speak now directly to the process of surrender, because surrender is often misunderstood. Many people believe surrender means giving up, releasing control in a way that feels like defeat. But true surrender, the kind modeled by Jacob at the river, is not passive resignation. It is an active, engaged trust that continues to hold on, continues to show up, continues to seek the blessing, even while releasing the illusion that you were ever fully in control to begin with. Jacob surrendered his old strategies, his old cleverness, his old ways of forcing outcomes through manipulation and deception. But he did not surrender his desire for the blessing itself. He held on to that desire with everything he had left, even as he surrendered every false tool he had once relied upon. This is the kind of surrender I invite you into today. Surrender your need to control every outcome. Surrender your old strategies that have left you exhausted and no closer to peace. But do not surrender your hope. Do not surrender your desire for the blessing that is still coming. Hold on to that with everything you have left, even as you release everything else. Consider also the quiet, gradual nature of true awakening. Dawn does not arrive all at once in a single blinding burst of light. It arrives slowly, gradually lightening the horizon until, almost without noticing the exact moment it happened, you look up and realize the night has ended. Spiritual awakening often works the same way. You may not experience one dramatic moment where everything suddenly makes sense. Instead, you may notice small shifts, a little more peace than you had last month, a little more clarity than you had last week, a little more strength to face the day than you had yesterday. These small shifts are not insignificant. They are the slow lightening of your own personal horizon, evidence that dawn is indeed approaching, even if it has not yet fully broken. I want to invite you in this season of awakening to begin practicing a kind of naming in your own life. Just as Jacob's old name was replaced with a new one, I want you to consider what old names you have been calling yourself that no longer reflect who you are becoming. Perhaps you have called yourself forgotten, and it is time to begin calling yourself remembered. Perhaps you have called yourself broken beyond repair, and it is time to begin calling yourself in the process of being made whole. Perhaps you have called yourself ordinary, easily overlooked, and it is time to begin calling yourself kushun, marked, set apart for a purpose that is even now unfolding. This process of renaming yourself is not about denial. It is not about pretending the wrestling never happened, or that the wound does not still ache on certain days. It is about aligning your own self-understanding with the truth of what God has already spoken over you, even if you have not yet fully believed it. Jacob's name was changed in a single moment, but living into that new name, learning to walk as Israel rather than as Jacob, surely took the rest of his life to fully embody. The same will likely be true for you. The new name has been spoken, the awakening has begun. But walking fully into that new identity is a journey, not a single instant, and I want to walk that journey with you, one step at a time, one day at a time, until the limp becomes simply a part of your story rather than the whole of it. As we prepare to move into our final part together, I want you to sit with this truth for a moment. You are not the same person who began watching this message. Something in you has already begun to shift, even if you cannot yet fully articulate what that shift is. The wrestling you have walked through, the wounds you carry, the long nights that have stretched on longer than you expected, none of it has been wasted. All of it has been forming, shaping, preparing you for the new name that is, even now, being spoken over your life. If your heart is responding to what you are hearing right now, if something in you is rising to meet the promise being spoken over your life in this moment, we want you to know that this space was created for you. Every message on this channel is prayed over, carefully prepared, and offered with the sincere desire to see you walk into the fullness of what God has written for your life. If this message has been that word for you today, would you take a moment to hit the like button and let it be your declaration that you receive what heaven is speaking? Share this with someone in your life who is standing in their own season of holding, someone who needs to hear today that the reversal is coming. And if you have not yet subscribed, we genuinely invite you to join this community, because what God has for you through this channel is not limited to this single message. This channel is no longer monetized, but we chose to keep showing up because we believe these messages belong in the ears of people like you at exactly the right moment. If you feel moved to support this work and help us continue reaching people in their most critical seasons, there is a voluntary donation link in the description and in the pinned comment below. We receive every contribution with deep gratitude and with prayer for the one who gave it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for trusting this space with the weight of what you are carrying. Beloved, as we come to the close of this message together, I want to gather up everything we have walked through and place it gently into your hands, because the story of Jacob at the river Jabbok was never meant to remain a distant ancient tale. It was always meant to become a mirror for your own life, and I believe if you have listened with an open heart, you have seen your own reflections somewhere within it. We began by reminding you that you are here today not by accident, but by design. We walked together through the story of a man who spent years running, striving, grasping for a blessing he was afraid he would never receive on his own terms, until the night came when everything else was stripped away and he was left alone at the edge of a river with nothing left to do but hold on. We saw that the wound he received was not evidence of defeat, but evidence of the depth of his struggle, and that the very hand that marked him was the very hand that stayed with him until the blessing came. We heard the story of a woman who found herself on the floor of her own living room, exhausted, uncertain, refusing to let go until the dawn slowly and quietly arrived. We considered practical signs by which you might recognize your own season of wrestling, and practical steps for responding with faith rather than despair. We stood together at the emotional center of this message and declared that you have never once been abandoned, not for a single moment, not even in your darkest hour. We grounded all of this in the unshakable words of Scripture, and we prayed together, asking God to meet you exactly where you are. And we considered what it means to walk forward, wound and blessing carried together, into a spiritual awakening that renames you, not as forgotten, not as broken beyond repair, not as ordinary, but as chosen, marked, and set apart. If you take nothing else from this message today, I want you to take this. The mark you carry, whether visible to others or known only to you and to God, is not a sign of your rejection. It is a sign of your selection. Only a rare few hold on through the entire night. Only a rare few refuse to let go until the blessing comes. Only a rare few walk away limping, forever changed, forever marked, forever renamed. And if you have made it this far in this message, listening with your whole heart, I believe you are one of them. I want to ask you for something simple before we part ways today. If this message has spoken to you, if you have recognized your own story somewhere within Jacob's story, I want to ask you to like this video so that it can reach someone else who desperately needs to hear that their own long night is not the end of their story. I want to ask you to subscribe to this channel so that you never miss the next message that God may use to speak directly into your life exactly when you need it most. And I want to ask you to share this message with someone you know who is walking through their own version of this wrestling season right now. Someone who feels forgotten, someone who feels unnoticed, someone who is exhausted from holding on through a night that has stretched on far longer than they expected. Your simple act of sharing might be the very thing that helps them hold on for just one more day until their own dawn breaks. As we close, I want to leave you with a blessing, spoken over your life exactly as it is today. Wounds and all, struggles and all, uncertainty and all. May you have the strength to hold on through whatever night you are walking through right now, refusing to let go until the blessing comes. May every wound you carry become, in time, a testimony rather than a source of shame. May you hear even now a new name being spoken over your life, replacing every old identity shaped by fear, by rejection, by struggle, with an identity rooted in the unshakable truth that you are chosen, known, and deeply loved. May the dawn break over every area of darkness in your life, bringing provision where there has been lack, healing where there has been wound, and clarity where there has been confusion. And may you walk forward from this day, not despite your limp, but because of everything that limp represents. A night you did not run from, a struggle you did not abandon, and a blessing you refused to release until it became fully yours. You are chosen, beloved. You have always been chosen. And whatever mark this season leaves upon your life, may it forever remind you that you wrestled through the night, and you did not let go, and the morning came, exactly as it was always going to. Go now in peace, carrying your new name with you into whatever comes next.